You were taught that intensity means truth. That when someone makes you feel seen from the first moment, it is evidence of fate. That belief keeps you weak. It trains you to confuse stimulation with safety. It teaches you to hand over judgment to adrenaline. It makes you easy to condition because your nervous system decides before your reason has time to speak. In reality, what feels like love at first is often training at first, not your training. The reshaping of your perception by someone who understands what your biology will reward. They do not need to know the words for it. They only need to feel what gets a response. Narcissistic conditioning hides inside what looks like affection. It does not arrive as blatant control. It arrives as perfect compatibility and fast certainty. It feels like relief. It feels like home. It is engineered to feel like that. You were taught to trust your feelings. You were not taught to audit what produces them. The contrast is simple. A conditioned mind asks if it feels good. The sovereign mind asks what pattern keeps showing up. The first tactic that feels like love is mirroring. You see yourself reflected back with precision. Your interests, your wounds, your language, all validated on contact. Social neuroscience calls this limbic attunement. Mirroring activates the brain's self-referential circuits and rewards you with a sense of immediate closeness. It is flattering to believe someone just gets you. Machiavelli observed that people judge more by appearances than by reality. Mirroring does not show you who they are. It shows you who you want them to be. If you trust it, you will bond to your own projection. The second tactic is future certainty, fast promises, big plans, shared dreams laid out with confident detail. Psychologically, anticipation spikes dopamine more than possession. Helen Fisher's research on romantic love shows that the pursuit phase, not the stability phase, lights up reward circuits. A narcissist exploits that. They create a narrative that pulls you forward. They talk about trips, vows, homes, children, businesses. It feels like safety because it simulates structure. In reality, it is credit extended on an empty account. You get high on a future that costs them nothing to promise and costs you everything to pursue. The third tactic is intermittent reinforcement. B.F. Skinner documented that variable rewards create the strongest forms of attachment. Not stable rewards, variable ones. After the mirroring and the promises, the pattern changes. You get delayed replies. You get small withdrawals. You get a hint of coldness, then a burst of affection when you panic. Your brain ties relief to the person who caused the panic. Relief is chemically powerful. It deepens the attachment. If you confuse relief with love, you will start working to earn relief. You will call your work loyalty. It is training. The fourth tactic is gaslighting. This is not just lying. This is control of your reality testing function. The human brain updates memories each time they are retrieved. That is memory reconsolidation. If someone tells you with confidence that your memory is wrong, and if they are your source of safety, your brain becomes willing to revise the memory to reduce conflict. That is cognitive dissonance at work, as Festinger described. You stop trusting your own senses and start outsourcing judgment. Epictetus taught that the first power of a free person is the ability to inspect impressions. Gaslighting breaks that. Once your impressions feel unreliable, you become compliant out of fear of being wrong. The fifth tactic is triangulation. They bring in a third party. Sometimes a real person, sometimes a vague admirer, sometimes an ex who will not let go. The goal is not love, it is leverage. Scarcity drives value in markets, and scarcity also drives pursuit in human attention. When you feel replaced, you try harder. You compete for what you already had. Social comparison is a primitive reflex. A narcissist keeps it active because it makes you ignore your standards. You focus on regaining status inside their world, instead of asking why their world deserves your effort. The sixth tactic is boundary erosion through small tests. A late arrival, a joke at your expense, A small request that costs you. A divulgence of your private story without consent. You are invited to be generous, to be understanding, to be mature. The foot in the door technique is simple. Secure a small concession, then build on it. Each concession becomes the new baseline. By the time a major line is crossed, you have normalized 20 minor ones. You now defend your own erosion, because admitting the trend would collapse the story you want to keep. The seventh tactic is token remorse, followed by reset rituals. After a rupture, they deliver a dramatic apology. Tears, vulnerability, gifts, confessions of fear, a story about trauma. The apology is real enough to feel convincing. It may even be sincere in that moment. That does not make it meaningful. If the pattern does not change, the remorse is part of the pattern. Neurochemistry complicates this. After conflict and reunion, oxytocin rises. The bond feels deeper. The cycle pairs pain with closeness. Dutton and Painter describe this as traumatic bonding. You will call it passion. It is conditioning. Notice the structure. Idealize, destabilize, soothe, repeat. Each loop increases your investment. Each loop makes you less sensitive to warning signs and more sensitive to withdrawal. This is why it feels unique, not because it is rare, because it is tailored to your nervous system. People often ask how to tell the difference between love and conditioning. The difference is time and evidence. Conditioning requires speed because it cannot survive verification. It must win before you measure. Love, as Aristotle framed it in terms of virtue, depends on habituation. Character is what a person does repeatedly. Reliable affection emerges from repeated action under varied conditions. You cannot get that in a week. You can get stimulation in a week. You cannot get trust. It is counterintuitive for people trained to chase intensity. You were taught that if you do not seize it now, you lose it forever. That belief serves the manipulator, not you. The person who respects you will not need to rush your consent. They will not inflate urgency. They will not punish your caution. Epictetus would advise you to delay assent when an impression hits with force. If it is real, it will tolerate inspection. Another counterintuitive point. A person who feels like destiny might simply be compatible with your wounds. If chaos defined closeness in your early life, then chaos feels like home. Your body reads arousal as attachment. Your mind gives it meaning. Bowlby's attachment theory explains that early patterns shape later expectations. A narcissist senses those expectations like a predator senses weakness. They push where the response is largest. This is not mystical. It is reinforcement learning. They do what works. You teach them what works by how you react. Ask yourself a simple binary. Do you need to feel special, or do you need to be free? If you need to feel special, you will accept private rules that trap you. Special becomes the justification for unequal treatment. If you need to be free, you will choose standards over flattery. You will treat praise as a data point, not as currency. Narcissistic conditioning fails on people who place sovereignty above sensation. A few psychological markers expose the conditioning if you are willing to look. Rapid intensity paired with poor specificity about their own life. They know everything about you, but you know very little about them that can be checked. Excessive talk about loyalty before trust has been earned. Urgency around exclusivity before you can observe them over time. Defensiveness when you try to slow down. Shifting narratives that make you question your memory. Subtle remarks that isolate you from friends who are negative, jealous, or do not understand us. Praise that flips into contempt when you assert boundaries. A pattern of being the victim in every past story. Token displays of generosity that redirect attention back to their greatness. You do not need to label them. You only need to count the pattern. Machiavelli wrote that it is not necessary to have all the virtues. It is necessary to appear to have them. The narcissist appears generous, devoted, honest, humble, The appearance is calibrated to your appetite. They take inventory in the first conversations. They listen for the traits you long for. Then they perform those traits. This is not love. It is role play as leverage. There is a reason you struggle to detach from what you can describe clearly. Your knowledge is not the problem. Your nervous system is. Variable reinforcement, anticipation, and relief combine into a bond that knowledge alone cannot break. You need a different posture, not a different quote. Seneca advised training for misfortune in calm times. That applies here. Build the habit of delayed decisions in high arousal states. Build the habit of taking distance when you need clarity. Train yourself to gather data before you choose. When the next mirroring performance arrives, you will not feel compelled to reward it with access. You will require time. Time is the enemy of conditioning. Some will tell you that if you have standards, you will end up alone. Look at the alternative. People without standards are never alone. They are occupied. There is a difference. One path is solitude by choice. The other path is captivity by flattery. The contrast clarifies your values. Expect friction when you step out of conditioning. The narcissist will escalate. They will protest, love bomb harder, or punish. They will try to reopen old loops. They will press every button you showed them. This is not evidence that you are wrong. It is evidence that the conditioning relied on your reactivity. If you stay calm, reduce access, and keep your decisions tied to observable behavior over time, the pattern will starve. You are not waging war. You are removing a market. If there is no buyer for volatility, the seller moves on. You do not need to fix them. You do not need to expose them. You do not need to collect more proof that you are being mistreated. You already have enough proof if your peace depends on their mood. Your job is not to become someone who can tolerate more. Your job is to become someone who will not pay for intensity with self-respect. The claim that real love often feels slower at first is unpopular because it deprives you of the early chemical celebration. Yet, it stands. Healthy bonds are not performance art. They are tested through time and shared hardship. They do not require constant crises to feel alive. They do not isolate you. They are compatible with the rest of your life. They make your world larger, not smaller. If you want a simple lens, use this. Does this connection make you more honest with yourself, more consistent over weeks and months, more connected to other healthy people, and more capable of saying no without punishment? Or does it make you hide, rationalize, detach from friends, and fear setting boundaries? The first is growth. The second is conditioning. None of this will convince someone who is addicted to the feeling of being chosen. That is fine. You are not here to rescue the crowd. You are here to change your posture. To do that, you must give up the myth that your emotions are sacred guides. They are signals. They are not orders. You must give up the myth that love proves itself with speed. It proves itself with stability. You must give up the myth that the right person will read your mind and meet every unspoken need. Adults communicate standards. They do not test for mind readers. Consider what you admire. If you admire intensity more than integrity, you will keep selecting narcissists because they can supply the first cheaply. If you admire self-control, patience, and clear action over time, you will filter out people who rely on theater. This is less exciting in the first week. It is more liberating in the first year. This knowledge is not popular because it makes you harder to sell to. Entire industries profit from your hunger for drama. Stories, songs, apps, and influencers celebrate speed and destiny because attention spikes when you feel urgent. Slow, sober attachment does not trend. It endures. There is a reason you rarely see it glamorized. It does not keep people clicking. It just keeps them sane. If you want to be unconditionable, adopt a few principles. Treat early intensity as a test you will not reward. Measure people by repeated actions, not peak moments. Sit with discomfort without seeking relief from the source causing it. Refuse to make life-altering decisions while your nervous system is flooded. Decline exclusivity until you have observed their behavior across moods and contexts. Keep your friendships and routines intact. If they demand you shrink your world to prove loyalty, you have your answer. You will lose some highs if you do this. You will stop getting the hit from dramatic first weeks. You will start feeling something else. Quiet confidence. Trust in your own perception. Capacity to walk away when patterns go dark. The narcissist's power ends where your need for stimulation ends. Most people will not do this. They prefer to be swept. They are more afraid of boredom than of abuse. They will count red flags and continue anyway. That is their path. It does not have to be yours. You can choose to be the person who pauses, who checks, who raises the price of admission to your life. You can make your standards expensive, not to punish others, to protect your own mind. If you have watched this far, you already feel the divide. You can keep buying intensity and call the invoice love. Or you can become hard to condition. The second path is not glamorous. It is quiet and disciplined. It is the path that makes you less useful to manipulators and more useful to yourself. This space is not for everyone. It is for the minority who will trade fantasy for freedom. If that is you, remember what you were taught and replace it. Intensity is not truth. Relief is not love. Urgency is not evidence. Time is not the enemy. It is the filter. Keep your mind clear. Keep your standards high. Keep your access limited. The rest will sort itself.